Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of an Irish Knitting podcast. I am Sam. I am an artist, illustrator, and aspiring knitting designer coming to you from a very, very gloomy Dublin today. And I'm looking that way because the window is there and I can see so much rain coming down. It's been 3 days of rain, but let's leave the weather forecast for later. This is my attempt of a knitting podcast focusing on my finished works, works in progresses, acquisitions, if any, and literally anything that is going on in my crafty knitting life. And sometimes we have the intrusion of other crafts and arts as well. You can find me around the internet looking for Irish farm art, and as well on the dedicated Instagram account to this podcast, an Irish Knitting Podcast, of course. All the links are below in the description. I really hope you are doing well, you are nice and cozy in your home. I really hope the rain is not bothering you, or the snow, or the wintry, coldy situation as much as it's bothering me. I kind of felt like it's almost time to get some spring on. I see all the trees in my garden starting to blossom. The buds are all there ready to spring up. And if the temperature grows a little bit, all the flowers will be out, but there won't be any bee around because it's just raining constantly. So yeah, this rant against the weather is gonna last all the podcast. So I really hope you are fine. Grab your cup of tea, sit down with me for half an hour probably. Today is not going to be a heavy podcast. I don't have really much done, but I really wanted to talk to you about, of course, a couple of works that I've been doing, but especially a few new ideas and my knitting stash. There has been quite an update, but we'll come to that later on. So, finished works. Can you see it? It's over here. I'm wearing it. And this is, let me get you the actual name of the pattern. This is the sweater with raglan, model 3NB58 by Navia Garn, which is a Danish yarn brand that produces lovely yarn as well. I have mentioned the actual name of the pattern because unfortunately you can't find this pattern on Ravelry. You need to go onto the Navia website and look for it. But if you really like this jumper, I put the link in the description below. It is a pattern for sale. The cost is not that much. I think it was €3.50 or something like that. Really very low price. But unfortunately, you can only find the pattern in Danish language, which is a bit of a bummer because you need to translate it, you need to be familiar with the terminology, the abbreviation of the Danish language. It can be a bit of a job, but I have been tackling this pattern in a couple of ways. First of all, going through Google Translate, translated everything as bare as possible from Danish to English. And that gave me quite of an idea on how the pattern works, gave me the indication of the casting on, casting off, the creasing, and so on and so forth. The second layer of this translation was, of course, the help of a couple of friends that are residing or that are Danish themselves. And that really helped a lot to get at least to understand the abbreviation, for example, or the techniques that the pattern implies that you know. There are plenty of websites that give you all the abbreviation from any languages basically translated into English, which is another layer of help. But the third big layer of help that I got while translating this pattern was actually bare, pure knowledge. I am quite keen and used by now to knitting Nordic patterns, Swedish, Norwegian patterns. I know how they work. They are like recipes, very, very brief. They only give you the stitch count, the basic technique, and everything else is basically up to you. And this pattern is not different. It's really brief, gives you very, very few indication of what you have to do, and everything else is really up to your knowledge. So I took all of this and I put it together into a nice little Google Docs, and everything came up beautifully. Now, a problem that I had before we go into the actual jumper was the creasing situation for the raglan. As I mentioned, I say 5 times in this podcast, in previous podcasts before, the pattern had some missing wording. So the pattern indicates a type of decrease on one side of the raglan, but didn't mention anything on the other side. So you know how you knitted the raglan. This is knitted in the round, the yoke. You decrease on both sides of a virtual stitch marker that you leave in 4 points where the raglan decreases are going up. So the pattern mentioned one type of decrease from one side, but nothing on the other side. So it was a bit of a confusion, if I have to be honest. I really liked the decrease in the picture, in the model picture of the pattern, but I couldn't really figure out the way they were done themselves. Now, looking back at the pattern, I do think the picture on the model was a machine knitted jumper, because there are things that make me dubious that there was an actual hand knitted pattern. The decreases, for example, they work on 3 stitches on one side and 1 stitch on the other side, or something like that, with a twisted type of situation. I put some pictures over here somewhere so you can see that, and I don't think that is easily achievable if you hand knit that. And as well, the pattern does not mention that complicated type of decrease that you can get from the picture. Anyway, all of that turned out to be quite of a nightmare, so I decided to just do a knit together SSK, which is fine. Was the thing that I wanted to avoid, but this jumper started to become a bit of a slog. So this jumper is actually beautiful, wears beautifully, it's gorgeous, and I can't really have anything to say bad on the pattern or the jumper or the yarn, but I think, and I probably shouldn't say that, but it's more to the knitter than the pattern itself. I could have applied this color work here to another sweater like the Arne and Carlos Save the Children, and would have had the same exact result without having to buy another pattern. I really hope the pattern would have said how to make those beautiful decreases for the raglan. Anyhow, let's get into the jumper. This is knitted from the bottom and up. You knitted the body, you stop before the collar work, you cast off for the underarm a number of stitches, then you knitted the 2 sleeves until the collar work, cast off the stitches in the same amount, and then join everything together and start the collar work and raglan decreases until you get up to the neckline. You cast off a number of stitches in the middle of the front piece, and then you work backward and forward to get a little bit of a raise on the back of the collar, what you would achieve with short rows usually. Having said that, I did add short rows as well, but we'll get to that in a second. What else I have to say? The yarn that I used. The pattern recommend using Navia Duo, which I used to own, but I really didn't like knitting with it. It was quite rough and really stiff as a yarn. Caveat here, I never washed it. I ended up donating the yarn away because I couldn't knit with it. So I don't know if Navia Duo as a yarn can wash better, like let's say a host garn, which after washing the yarn plumps up and becomes super soft and nice. In that case, the yarn was so bad to knit for me. I know that people love the yarn. Take into account Ellie from Scandier Knit. She was the one that, without knowing, made me buy Navia Duo because she loves it. I did not. I gave the yarn away, so I can't really say much on the yarn itself, apart that from me it was a very bad experience in knitting with it. But back to the jumper. Navia Duo is a sport weight yarn. It's that weird weight that I can never understand. It's like knitting with Rauma Finu, formerly known as PT2. It's not decay, it's not fingering, it's a sort of a midway through. And I'm not really familiar with that weight of yarn enough to make a sweater that really fits me well or to get good gauge and so on and so forth. I need to experiment with that because I do love Finu PT2. It's a gorgeous yarn, and I would love to have something that I really like with that. So knitting with Navia Duo would have given me a larger gauge for sure. But I ended up using Sandnes Garn Thin Peer Gynt, which is a 100% wool from Sandnes Garn. It's a 4-ply yarn, so it's quite thin. Has the same composition as the regular DK Peer Gynt, but it's just a thinner weight. And it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. I have another project here that I just started with yarn. It's gorgeous. It's soft but rustic at the same time. It doesn't itch. I'm wearing a t-shirt underneath here, and you know me, I never ever wear a jumper, a woolly jumper with only a t-shirt underneath. It's just not possible, and it's too itchy. So Peer Gynt, Thin Peer Gynt is becoming soon one of my favorite yarns. The colors I use is a very light gray, looks almost white on the camera, and then a darker mid gray and black. Now the black piece was a nightmare to knit. I do recognize that I wear black all the time. My entire wardrobe is black. I think, I don't know, 80% of my t-shirts are black. The other 20% is white. But I do enjoy a good black outfit. And I never knit in black yarn. So in this case it was kind of a challenge for myself, knitting a piece in black, which turned out to be absolutely gorgeous. Being the yarn though a little thinner than the one suggested to the pattern, I had to go up on my size. You know, I have a rule, the 240 rule, which is that if I use fingery way yarn, a combination of 2.5 and 3mm needles, I get at the waist 240 stitches. I know that more or less the jumper is gonna wear nice, it's gonna fit me well, and there's the exact amount of ease that I really want. Now, that gauge doesn't take into account row gauge, which is not a problem with this type of instruction. The pattern is so brief and you don't really have much to do apart from a bit of raglan decreases, so with your know-how, your knowledge from previous pattern, you get to adjust the rope gauge there, which is completely fine, and the result is 100% of the time very, very nice. And yeah, you know, look at this, it's just so beautiful. What modification did I make? Well, nothing really, apart from the creasing here. It was a bit of a jumble. I just took the actual SSK knit together thing and applied to this jumper, following the exact same instruction that the pattern gives. Now the collar, you can see it's a bit large, not that much to bother me, but this is because I added short rows. I know that if I didn't add the short rows, I would be like this all the time, pulling my jumper up and down, because that happened before. With those 5 to 6 short rows that I added, I think it fits so much better. And when I say short rows, I mean I am knitting the short rows from the very bottom of the neck, from the front all the way down, 7 rows going backward and forward to raise up the collar behind. If you are unfamiliar with short rows, I warmly recommend you to check out Very Pink Knit video regarding German short rows. I'm gonna link it here. It's where I kind of learned how to make short rows, how to tailor them to my garment. I think that channel, you probably know it already, it's very, very famous, billions of subscribers. But I think they really explain techniques in a very easy and up to everybody's way. And that applies to one of my works in progresses as well. I'm thinking if we have anything else to say about this jumper, but I really don't think so, apart from the fact that it's exactly what I wanted. I already wore this a couple of times, it's gorgeous. Oh, last thing is, I was complaining about the black yarn picking up everything from the floor. I do have a, how do you call it? It's not a mat, it's a big mat, it's a... Anyway, you know, on the ground underneath my sofa, I have this, I should know the word for fuck's sake. It is a carpet, oh jeez. Sorry about that, my brain just cut off for a second. I have a big carpet there, almost like 3 meters long, which is made out of straw. It's a very rustic, it's beautiful to look at, but when you leave the ball of yarn on the ground, picks up literally every bit of grass and straw and materials. It's a nightmare. This jumper was basically a light grey at the end, full of materials. But something that I've seen is that after washing, all of that just fell off. I don't know if it's the composition of the yarn or what. I was prepared in my mind to have and to get to buy one of those machines for peeling to try and get everything off, but it wasn't needed, just fell off. So you have now a beautiful uniform black. I have no idea what's happening with my English today. It's probably very early in the morning. That's why my brain is not set up to speak a couple of languages. And yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry if I look down there as well as at the window. I have my work computer there. I know that I'm waiting for a call early in the morning before I start working, so I'm just keeping an eye if anybody is actually contacting me right away. These are the perks of being a lawyer. You probably can hear the notification coming in. Anyway, let's get on with works in progress. Also, do you mind if I take off this jumper? It is boiling here. I turned the heating on, big mistake. And here we go. No idea how my hair is now, but I have the chance as well to show you the finished work in its unworn glory, which is here. I put a tag that says this is the back. I talked about these tags in my previous podcast a couple of weeks ago. They're very funny, quite expensive, but very nice. Something else that you may be interested in is the raglan. The way I do raglan, ever since I did make the Arne Carlos Save the Children sweater, is to incorporate the color work in the raglan by knitting only with the main color. It's not the prettiest, but it's definitely the safest way to knit a raglan, in my opinion, because kind of it cuts off the color work, so you know exactly where to start. In this case, being the color work so simple, I could have actually knitted the color work all the way up to the decrease and incorporated the decrease into the color work itself, but yeah, it became quite of a long work, like a slum type of work, and I just wanted to get it done and finish, cut it off, and yeah, this is the bad way of having to knit with fingery weight yarn. It takes a long time. What can you do? But the results are beautiful, and at least for myself is actually something that I do like and wear a lot, rather than knitting with a heavier yarn, getting loftier fabrics, something that I'm not quite enjoying wearing. And this brings us into the next work in progress, or the first work in progress, which is this thing here. This is the beginning / swatch of what will become a scarf. Now, I made this as a swatch, but yeah, I think I'm figuring out a way to make it become a decent scarf because the fabric is gorgeous. Now, I don't know if you can tell from there, but the fabric is actually brioche, and I never knitted brioche. This brings us back to what I just said about fingery weight yarn and the fact that I knit, I'd say 90% of my jumpers in fingery weight yarn. Why so? Because let's go back. We have time today, don't we? I'm waiting for a call, but I still have a couple of hours to go before work, so we can have a chat. If you don't like this chat, just skip forward, but you know, I think this applies to a lot of people. Back last summer, I had, and you well know this, a fairly bad case of knitting block. I couldn't knit for a couple of months. You may say, well, it's normal, it's the summer, who wants to squish yarns and knit? But that really bothered me because it never happened to me before. Knitting is something I find immense joy in, and is something that I really love. So last summer, finding myself not loving the knitting was very bad for my mental health, for my knitting practice, and for this podcast as well. So what I've done was to stop knitting for a while, of course, because I didn't have any pollution of bringing out my needles, and self-reflect a little bit on why did I get into the type of block, the type of situation. And I understood back then I was knitting for the podcast rather than knitting for myself. I was uploading something like a video a week or every other week, and you know, having a knitting podcast requires you to knit a lot and to produce projects, and I'm a victim of the YouTube algorithm pressure and all the beautiful knitters out there that seems like they knit so fast, so much new projects all of the time. And I thought to be a successful podcaster I would have needed to be one of those. I'm not, I'm working, I have a life and all of that. So Knitting for the podcast meant that to have more projects to show to the audience, I had to knit smaller projects, and I started knitting socks, for example, beanies, what else, toys and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy them, I enjoy knitting them, but the flip side is that I never use them. I never use a knitted sock that I knit myself with the gorgeous yarns, with very thin fingery way yarns, nothing. The only knitted socks that I wear is the ones that my grandmother made using chunky DK yarns, probably acrylic or whatever she got in stash. Poor thing, is not her fault if she couldn't get pure wool from the Andes or whatever. So that are the only socks that I wear because they're comfortable, because they remind me of my grandmother, because they are kind of a hug of love, if you wish. But all my beautiful, intricate patterns and knitted socks, they stay there in the closet. And at some point I just gave them away to charity, a big bag of knitted socks and beanies and scarves and you name it. At the same time, I was trying to get through garments a bit quicker, which meant knitting with a chunkier weight of yarn. I knitted with Let Lopi, for example, a lot of Charisma DK from Sandnes Garn, big chunky yarns, to get through faster and produce more. I have knitted patterns like the bubble sweater from Stephen West. Great pattern. It's a beautiful sweater, a beautiful game of color. The bubbles are gorgeous, very well written. Do you think I wore that jumper at least once? No, never. It's just because, part is my own self-consciousness. I was a very fat child growing up and a very fat teenager. So part of that self-consciousness still sticks and lingers on me, even unconsciously or consciously. So I always avoid wearing big jumpers, big t-shirts, something that is intricated in texture, for example. And but those are the ones that are quicker to knit. So that block was probably generated by me knitting stuff that I don't use, or knitting jumpers that I don't like to wear. And after the discerning moment, self-analysis, I came to the understanding that I do need, if I want to keep up the knitting joy and pleasure, I need to knit something that I really like. So nice fitted fingery weight jumpers is the way to go, probably. I do like to have a couple of cable sweaters in my wardrobe, but that is not something that I will wear on a daily basis or a weekly basis, but it's more an occasional wear. And yeah, that is why, going back to this, I did this big flight, is brioche. I never tried brioche because it gives you a very plump fabric, and because I don't want to make another accessory, I don't want to make a scarf, though probably this is going to turn into a scarf, but let's talk about that later. The idea was to make a brioche sweater, which is something that I probably end up not wearing very much or very often. But I was watching a couple of podcasts, and I don't remember who specifically, but someone was making this lovely kind of Sophie scarf made with brioche. It's probably another pattern, and I probably misspeaking now. I probably just dream of it, but I fell in love with the texture of that scarf, and I wanted to try to knit in brioche because I've never done it before. and this is the result. This is knitted with this Aranway yarn. This is Adria Fil Zebrino, which reminds you a little bit of the zebra stripes. It's a gorgeous yarn. It's part wool and part acrylic. I lost the tag because this is probably the first batch of yarn that I got in my stash as a conscious stash owner, without realizing that it had a big amount of acrylic inside. So during the years I tend to destash these, make stuff with that. But yeah, it was just a swatch. I do like the idea of brioche, and I probably would continue to make a little scarf out of this. If it's for me, fine. If it's not for me, never mind. I only have one ball, so let's see how long we can go with this ball. Otherwise, this could be just a nice little swatch. Jesus, swatch. I told you, the words are just escaping today. I don't know what it is. Probably because I'm drinking tea rather than coffee. I haven't got my first coffee yet. What is the plan for this? Now, I need to figure out if I can use thinner needles and thinner yarn for a brioche jumper, and here is where I would like your help. If you know about a garment pattern, if it's for men, better, but if it's not, you kind of know my style. Simple, unicolor with all over brioche. If it was in the round, would be so much better. If you know of such pattern, please send it to me. I am considering trying to knit a brioche jumper just because I really like this texture, and because, you know, it's a new technique. I would like to get more familiar with that, learn how to do increasing and decreasing with brioche, and also because how many colorwork jumpers would you need in your wardrobe? Anyway, please let me know, send me a message or a comment below if you know about a nice pattern all over brioche for men, or another pattern that can kind of fit my style. I think we are all friends here, you know, there's no new subscribers, so you kind of know what is my style generally. So please let me know, it would be really helpful, and probably we will have another jumper coming up. Let's go on with works in progress. It's just my last one. I told you this is not gonna be a big podcast, but yeah. So here we go. It's going to be a lot of needle kinkling and annoyance, but here it is. Ta-da! We have a body, bust-ish, and the beginning of a sleeve. What it is, this is another Islander, I have absolutely no idea how you say it. I've heard people naming it in so many different ways, but this is the Islander sweater, and the pattern is from this book here, which is Sandnes Garn Tema 68 Norske Ikoner, Nordic icon, I think. Let me see if I can find a picture of that exact sweater before I go further. Here it is. This is the jumper that I'm trying to knit, but you can see we have some different patterns here. So on the pattern, I knitted this exact pattern before using Rauma Finu. It was a gorgeous brown and mustard color jumper, but as I mentioned before, I was completely wrong with gauge and turned out massive, so now my dad owns it. I didn't want to follow the pattern as 100% prescribed, so I took another color work from another version of this sweater, the Islander sweater, and I applied that pattern, that color work pattern, to this sunness pattern. Does it make any sense? I'm ruffling. Because I know that the pattern would turn out nice if I knit with the yarn that I know, and I follow a little bit gauge indication and all of that, so you know what I mean. It turns out fine. I love the combination of the color. These are the remnant from the jumper that I just showed you, the Navia. This is knitted in Peer Gynt, thin Peer Gynt, black and the light grey. It's coming together beautifully. I can't wait to get it finished. It's a bit slow because we have the finger away yarn and is all over color work. Let me show you the inside as well. I know that people like to see the floats. Look at this. It's float galore, is so pretty, and I do like the gray is so light that is almost white without being a striky white. You know, it's nice, but it's less wearable. This jumper is knitted from the bottom and up. I have done a tubular cast on following the method that I was showing you in a video before. So it's basically a knitted in tubular cast on, so you don't have to fuss with double knitting, with setup rows, anything like that. It's just you pick the yarn from a very first stitch that you cast on, and then you cast on a number of stitches. I'm gonna try to find that video. It's definitely one of the collection of my videos here. It's very simple, but the effect is absolutely tubular, if it makes any sense. So it's knitted from the bottom up, cast off for the sleeves, knit the sleeves, cast off for the underarm, the same amount of stitches, and then raglan. Easy peasy. It's almost exactly the same. It's just that I had a few balls of the yarn left in stash, and I didn't really have anything to make with, you know, 3 balls of grey, 2 balls of black. It's I'm trying to avoid that type of stashing situation in which I have just a couple of balls here and there of unmatched color. They can come together in a full-on color work eventually, but yeah, it's something that I really want to keep there. Anyway, this is going to be gorgeous. It's gonna be kind of a long work probably. I am lucky that for Easter, which is in 2 weeks, I am going back home to visit my family and spend Easter holidays and celebrations down there. So I can bring this, and because I will be working from Italy as well, I will have a lot of time closed in my room, doing meetings, attending conferences, stuff like that. So a lot of time for knitting, where my brain is only required and I don't have to interact with people, which is great. I really love it. Now knitting more with grey yarn, I am kind of noticing a little bit of a textural difference from the black. The black tend to be really soft, but the grey still keeps a little bit of rusticness. I don't know if it's the color, the way they tint the yarn, or what, but I'm really enjoying this feeling. Hopefully when it washes, it's gonna be absolutely gorgeous. Now I have only one full ball left, which is not going to bring us far, so I probably need to place an order for another ball of 2, and I really hope this doesn't bring me to have another ball left in stash that then I need to justify to have another jumper quantity. This brings us to the yarn talk that I was just mentioning, and I have it here in my little dandy notebook. So the other day I took out my full stash of yarn to get a little bit of an idea of what I have in stash without having to buy for every single new project, and B, because I just wanted to, put the yarn in bags to avoid bugs and nasty things happening to my beloved stash of yarn. I wanted to tidy up my spare room. I have probably some guests coming, so there's gonna be a bed there in the place of my yarn stash, so all of these things. In that process, I note down how many balls of yarns that I have. And as it happens, this is gonna be boring, but once again, we're here to chat. So if you wanna skip ahead, go, and it was a pleasure to have you. What type of hair do I have here? Anyway, what do I have in stash? So, turned out that the vast majority of my stash is composed by a couple of balls of this color, probably 5 of the other color. There's nothing that really can give me a nice sweater or a jumper without having to annoy myself and pulling stuff together and find a project to use 3 or 4 different bits of colors. Caveat here, I have quite a collection of super soft wool cones from HostGuard, which I'm not mentioning here because I know those are fine. They are big cones of yarn. I can get 2 or 3 jumpers out of one cone, so I'm not touching them. But in my balled up yarn, I have 13 balls of DK Peer Gynt in the color 2035, which is kind of a mustardy yellow color. Never wear that color. I wonder why I bought it, but now that I'm getting into this brioche knitting, that could be a project for that, or could be another kind of sweater number 15 or another cable jumper, Billy pullover, something like that, maybe. So I'm happy enough with that. It's gonna stay in the stash. If I want, I have a jumper quantity of that. Now, DK yarn, I know that I need 13 to 14 balls, and the Peer Gynt is 50 gram balls by 90 meters, if I'm right. Then I have 5 balls of a charcoal gray color, which is kind of annoying to have those 5 balls, but sorry, I'm crinkling because I have here a big purchase of yarn that as it happens, I bought to replenish this thing. So we're going to talk about this in a second. 5 balls of charcoal color. 5 balls is not a lot, but definitely can't give me a jumper. So the decision there was to buy other, 8 balls to make a full sweater, or to keep that for a color work, which is what I have decided for. I think the way I went here was to understand what can become a color work and what is worth to have for a full jumper. Then I had 2 balls of white color as well. 2 balls doesn't justify to purchase a full jumper quantity. So that will be colorwork accent. Then I have 2 balls of a red color and 5 balls, of that blue speckle that I used for the Billy pullover last week, which is, sorry for the crinkling, this one that you can see in the bag. I'm not taking that out, I'm sorry. So I really love that color. It's a gray yarn with blue and green and dark blue and dark purple speckles. Gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. So I knew I had to raise up the bar to the jumper quantity. So I bought there 8 balls of that yarn. So I know that I can get a full jumper quantity of yarn. And this is what I have in stash for Peer Gynt. Then I had 12 balls of blue Peer Gynt that I originally bought to make a Marius sweater, like a classic blue, white and red Marius sweater. That didn't turn out because I knitted the same one in another yarn that I was given. So those 12 balls stay there. Now, 12 balls of blue are not enough for a full jumper, could be enough for the color work. That is still the case, but I bought 1 more ball of the blue just to be on the safe side and to have a full jumper quantity there as well. Now let's go into Rauma. Because Rauma Finu, it's so difficult to have here in Ireland that whenever I'm shopping abroad, like this comes from France for example, and whenever they have Rauma, I try to get a few balls there. Over the years I bought quite a quantity of Rauma without really knitting much, apart from the brown and yellow jumper, because I don't get the yarn yet, but I really want to. So I ended up having, once again, 5 balls of these, 2 balls of that, 8 balls of the other yarn. And I know, once again, to have a full jumper knitted in Rauma, I probably need around 10 balls of yarn. Rauma, let's see, is 175 meters by 50 grams. So it's alright. So in stash I have 11 balls of blue yarn, which is fine, probably will give me a good jumper. I have 9 balls of the same brown yarn that I use for the Islander sweater. And 9 balls is not enough for a full jumper. That is a remainance of a big purchase I've made like a few years ago. So I got 2 new balls of that, bringing us to 11 as well. Then I have 2 balls of white and 2 balls of grey. The point there is it's enough 2 balls for a color work. If I decide to use Rauma for a color work, probably not. So I ended up getting 1 and 1 ball of the white and the red. Then I have 3 balls of beige, which is very good for a color work, and 10 balls of black, which is once again very good for a color work. And this is my yarn stash when it comes to balled up yarn. As you can see, although I just said a lot of numbers, it's not that much yarn, to be honest. It stays in a bucket, and now I use some of those vacuum bags, so it's taking no space at all, and I'm really happy with this job. This pocket here will replenish my yarn stash, and instead of getting a ball here, a ball there of this or that yarn, I actually get a full jumper quantity or full jumper quantities in each of the colors that I already owned, which is good. And by the way, I got it from this shop here, which is Lan et Tricot from France. It's a great shop. Shipping cost is not that much, and if you live in Europe, that is the way to go. I warmly recommend it. I made a big rant about Irish yarn shops last week. I don't want to get back into that now, but here we go. So now I just need to find jumpers to knit. What is that I wanna do going forward? Well, first of all, once again, if you know any pattern with brioche for a jumper, please let me know. I'll be really happy to try one. So send a comment down here. I'll be extraordinarily happy. We'll be finishing my Islander sweater, probably start a new one. I'm looking for inspiration. I'm browsing constantly Ravelry and Instagram and Pinterest to find inspiration for another jumper. And St. Patrick's Day is coming quite soon, so I will be making a couple of those little shamrock knitted thing. If you are interested in seeing them, I have the pattern in my Ravelry page as well. Might put a picture here. So that will be my next couple of weeks, and you probably won't see me until after Easter, because I have people coming to visit and I'm out for a trip in Venice. But you can definitely follow me around the social media and follow along. Anyway, I think that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast, and please consider to subscribe if you are not already. And as well, I just started a subscription page here on YouTube, in which I try to do some more Q&A, behind the scenes, some live streams as well. It's still a big work in progress. I need to figure out a way to do that, to bring you a little bit of value and as well a slot into my schedule, work-wise and life-wise. But it's something I'm really excited about, and I can't wait to really start and doing that on a weekly basis. That's basically it. Also, thank you so much for everybody that supported this channel on Ko-fi, I don't know how you say that, or to everybody that bought one of my patterns. Really helps a lot to get through technology, because technology is very expensive and I still have to change my computer. So anyway, thank you so much. I really hope you enjoy, and if I don't see you sooner, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody, and happy Easter as well. Bye.